Hello and welcome again to Chris's Caribbean Delights. And tonight I'm going to share with you a bread recipe which is very dear to my heart, and it's very fluffy and soft, and it's just delectable. Um, it's like a puff pastry dough bread, so to speak. Puff pastry dough bread. But before further ado, let's go to those ingredients and we'll make some puff pastry dough bread. Sugar, so far we have 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and we added 3/4 cup of milk. I'm using evaporated milk, and we just would beat this, whisk this together. One teaspoon of yeast, and just stir this until the yeast is dissolved and the sugar is dissolved. Next we'll get a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Gotta have some salt in there. Half a teaspoon of salt. Give that a stir. And we get 2 cups of flour. You can use any flour, bread flour, all-purpose flour. Cups of flour, and we'll mix this into a dough. We'll mix this until it comes together into a dough. So now this has come together. So at this point, you'll just go in with your hands and knead it a little, just to form the dough into a nice little dough ball. Just until it gets nice and smooth. And we let it rest for about 20 minutes and we'll be back. So after 20 minutes, come back to our dough. And it's nice and it's working there. It's nice and stretchy. We'll turn it out onto my mat, my baking mat. And at this point, I'll stretch it out. I'll just spread it out here. Spread it out a little. And I'll knead in 4 tablespoons of butter into the dough. We fold this over. Knead this in until it gets smooth and comes together again. Just takes a few minutes, and it kind of, once you put the butter in there, it kind of breaks it apart because the butter makes it more moist, and you just have to keep working it, keep kneading it until it comes back together. So it comes back together very nicely. So now it's back together, and we're ready for our next step. And our next step is resting again. We'll just let it rest for about another 20 minutes. And I'll just cover it with this bowl and let it rest for about 20 minutes. And I'll be back. Now for our next step. We have rested for another 20 minutes. We're going to just flour this guy to avoid sticking, and I'm going to roll it out into a rectangle. So for my next step, we're going to roll this out into a rectangle. You just roll it out here. And this surface I'm going to cover with butter also. Let me just spread butter. Could be salted or unsalted, doesn't matter. Just make sure it's all covered, and I'll be back. Now we're covered in butter. Just wipe my hands. We're going to roll this into a cylinder. We're going to roll it very tightly into a cylinder, starting from one end, rolling it up very, very neatly and tight. Just make sure it's all rolled in there. Just try to keep it as tight as possible. Coming down to the end, I just want it to stick together. So I kind of flatten it out there. I will continue rolling. Just roll it all up. Roll it all up there. Okay. Now, with my cutter, I just cut this guy in half. Cut him in half. And then cut in smaller pieces. Okay, and we'll do the same with this, and that's how we're going to put them into the pans. So I prepped a pan, a loaf pan. We're going to just pick this guy up and place him into the pan like that. Place him into the pan like that. And pick him up, place him into the pan. Now this is going to sit for 60 minutes, for 1 hour, until it rises up, and then we'll come back and we'll put an egg wash on them before we put them into the oven at 370 or 375 probably. No, actually, it's a lower heat requirement, which is 340. You can go 340 or 350. Okay, and that's for like 22 to 25 minutes. It doesn't take very long. So we'll just cover this and I'll be back. So we're in the oven at 340 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll be here. We'll bake for 22 minutes. 22 minutes at 340. I'll be back. Oh, and I did put an egg wash on there on the loaves. I have an egg wash. So it's going to have a nice brown complexion color and that lovely brown tan color. So we'll see what happens. So here we are, we're just out of the oven, and I'll get them out of the pan, and Here we are, just out of the oven. I just slide this off. It's nice and hot, but if you can see how fluffy and soft this is, wow. This is awesome. It's nice and hot. I just have to try it. Just slide some butter on there. Awesome. Taste test. Taste test. So soft. This is fantastic. Awesome. You must try this. Like, share, subscribe. Bon appetit. It's heavenly. Nice and soft. Fluffy. Gotta try this one. Thank you for watching.